Welcome back, everybody. A lot of people will say that it takes a lifetime to master any skill, but our next guest has just pushed that to the side. She went from being a novice to a poker pro in just a matter of 2 years. In fact, she went from not playing one game ever to earning over $300,000. She is now playing in the biggest games, the biggest tournaments. She even was crowned the national poker champion at one point, and she writes about her journey and also what she calls the psychology of luck. She's got a brand new book. It's called The Biggest Bluff: How I Learned to Pay Attention, Master Myself, and Win. Author Maria Konnikova joins us today. We got a lot to talk about. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Maria, some might say that the first gamble you made to pursue poker full-time to write this book was stepping away from your staff job at the New Yorker. Wow. And you already had a PhD in psychology of decision-making, which I actually didn't even know existed. So why did you choose to immerse yourself in poker to learn more about luck and control?
I had decided after my last book, The Confidence Game, came out, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I went through kind of a string of bad luck in my personal life, and it made me really pause and take stock and start thinking about the role that chance plays in our lives. And that brought me to game theory. And the father of game theory, John von Neumann, was a poker player. And it turns out that poker is the basis of game theory. And the reason that von Neumann turned to poker is he said that it mirrored life. It mirrored decision-making in life because it's a game of incomplete information. When I read about this, I thought, wow, poker is actually potentially a way for me to write about skill and chance and learn to tell the difference and learn to be a better decision maker. So that's how I came to the game. And that's how I took that big gamble leaving the New Yorker.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the nitty gritty here, Maria. So how does poker become a full-time job? Like, what does practicing to become a poker pro when you're just sort of like a novice at it look like? What's your daily regimen?
Excellent question. And there were no 2 days that were alike. The only thing that I knew from the get-go was that I had to really immerse myself in this and work hard. And so I ended up treating this as my full-time job, more than a full-time job. I treated it as I do writing, 7 days a week. And I would have days that were 8, 9, 10 hours long when I wasn't playing. And when I was playing, they suddenly became 11, 12, 13, 14 hours long. And what I would do is either study, and by studying, I mean I would read, I would watch videos, I would take very careful notes, I would look at how others were playing and write down questions so that I could review them later with my coach. And then I would try to put it all together and put it into practice and actually go to the tables and play. I put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours very, very quickly.
I imagine you'd also have to find a pretty good teacher, and you did. You got one of the best poker players in the world, Eric Seidel. How did you convince him, Eric, to teach you, a real beginner? Like, you didn't even know how many cards were in a deck.
I didn't. I was positive for some reason that there were 54. First of all, let's just say I got very lucky that he said yes. But I think that he really was intrigued by the premise of my project. I wasn't a poker player coming to him and saying, hey, make me a better poker player, give me some lessons. I was someone from a totally different background. I was a journalist. I was a psychologist. And I think that to him, it was a very interesting challenge. Can you take someone like me who has a theoretical knowledge of decision making, of all these biases, who's good at people, who's good at kind of those types of elements, and can you train me to think well and to actually be competitive today? And I think the other part of it is that he loves the game and he saw an opportunity to spread that love.
Okay, let's go into that area because you went from like zero to hero, Maria. Zero practically knowledge. And then within a couple of years, you're winning hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you say that you initially went in and when you were playing kind of felt like an imposter. So at what point did that switch where you were like, no, wait a second, this is coming together and I'm actually becoming really, really good?
It's very, very important not to conflate kind of doing well with thinking well, because one of the main lessons of poker is that the process is not the outcome, and you don't control the outcome. That's chance. You control the process, your decisions, that's skill, and you can make the right decision and still get unlucky. So that's very important. And yet, when you're losing lots and lots of money, it can be hard to motivate yourself to keep going. So winning that first win, that was very important to my self-confidence and to my motivation.
As you point out in the book that poker is 97% male. And you certainly write about what it's like to be a woman in this male-dominated game. Overall, did you find that being a woman worked for or against you?
Both. I think it's very difficult to find yourself when you're starting out in something new to not only be a novice, but to find that you're the only one of you, that everyone else is male, and that a lot of people think you don't belong, and that a lot of people are going to try to bully you and take advantage of you. And at the beginning, that got me down, and I definitely had to work on not letting myself be bullied and on doing things that didn't necessarily feel as natural or as comfortable for me right away. And so it was this transitional aha moment where I realized that, wait, they're all underestimating me. They're all looking at me as female first and a player second. That's a superpower. It's incredible to be underestimated, because then you can take the mistakes that they're making and thinking of you, and you can turn them on their head, and you can exploit them, and you can take advantage of that. And when I figured that out, that's when I started winning.
That is wicked awesome. So maybe this question sort of flows out of that, which is like, you have a deep knowledge of psychology and now psychology and poker. And you say that reading people is a lot of what the game is about. And you actually say that because of your knowledge in both sides now, that most of us who might think we're reading other people pretty well, you say we're doing it all wrong. Set us straight.
It's true. I mean, it's really, really hard to tell when people are lying. We have these intuitive folk theories of what it means if someone is telling the truth or not. As one psychologist told me, and I love the phrase so much that I'm borrowing it, she told me there's no such thing as a Pinocchio's nose. It's not like there's one sign that always shows that someone is lying. It just doesn't exist. And so what you learn from psychology, and then from kind of putting this into practice all the time at the poker table, is that yes, people do give off clues all the time. I mean, our bodies, our behaviors, there's so much information there. They're rich sources of material, but not in the way we think. It's not like this physical switch that gets turned on or turned off. Instead, we just have to learn to really pay attention and to observe people over time and to see how they behave normally, and then to see how they might change their behavior. And then it's really important to get feedback, to know if we're right or if we're wrong, right? Was this person actually weak when we thought they were weak? Were they strong when we thought they were strong? Because in the absence of feedback, how are we going to learn? How are we going to know if our judgments were correct or not? But for those people listening who say, oh, that's all well and good, but I want to know, how do you tell? The one thing I will say is that it turns out that the body part that communicates the most is our hands.
Oh, wow. That is very, very interesting as I sit on my hands right now. Now, you explored the idea of skill versus luck throughout this book. And look at me. Do you think we overestimate the role of skill over chance in our lives?
I think it's much more convenient to think that we control things a little bit more than we do. And I do think that chance is huge. And we have to learn to acknowledge it and to accept that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's time to abnegate all responsibility and then say, well, then nothing matters. I think that instead we need to maximize our skill, maximize our agency, maximize those moments that we do control, because chance is a huge part of it. And so we need to bow down to chance and then do everything we can to make the best decisions we can, be the best people we can possibly be, even in the face of the knowledge that you can be as good as you possibly can, and still chance has to be on your side for things to work out.
Maria, what a fascinating discussion. I don't think I'm going to ever look at poker the same, and certainly timely advice. What a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We want to remind everybody of the title of the book. It is called The Biggest Bluff. It is available everywhere now. We'll be right back after this.